the next step in making this image of Andrew look good is going to be to blend all of the different components that we've selected out together. So let's start working on that now. Right now, I see a couple of main points that we need to focus on, which are here where his neck comes and meets the rest of his body. Right there. And then we need to figure out how to cut out the fabric in his shirt to blend this top layer of the arms to the bottom layer. And I think that's really it, honestly, for this. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think the legs need to be a little bit bigger. So I'll go here, click Control T to access my transform box, and then scale up the legs a little bit. And then we'll bring them over and see if that helps at all. Maybe down a little bit. I might need to rotate this too. Yeah, I think that's where, because Andrew is really tall and right now he doesn't look tall. Now, here we go. Rotate it a little bit. So right now I've rotated it -3.09 degrees. And then just play with it until it looks decent. Yeah, okay. So we'll do, accept that. And now you can see that I've extended his foot beyond my canvas. So all I'll do is go to the crop tool. Something important to know about the crop tool is that it works both ways. You can crop inwards, right, and get rid of stuff, but you can also crop outwards and expand your canvas size, like here. So I just pull it out, accept that, and great. And now because I added these backgrounds as a solid fill color layer, remember when I did this and clicked solid color? So they'll automatically expand to fill my entire canvas, which is super helpful. So I don't have to change anything when I've expanded the size of my document. So let's go in here. First off, let's start with this right here. So I'm going to, I made this selection here with the arms and I cut it out right at the shirt. And honestly, I think it's fine if the fabric just comes up to here and then we'll cut out this line down here. Yeah, so we'll follow along this line here and erase everything else. So first thing we need to do is kind of adjust this selection because it's a little bit incorrect. So let's go ahead and go to the pen tool here with our layer mask selected. Go to the pen tool and I'll just try to follow this curve and allow for a little bit more room down here and make it look like that's really where the shirt is going. Okay, I went a little too far. I'm really glad that we've now covered the pen tool because now we can use it and make these awesome selections even better. So, oops. Okay. And now what I'll do is I'll make selection, that, and then I'll invert the selection, Control-Shift-I. Now this is the only area that's not selected, and what I'll do is with my layer mask selected, I'll paint in white right here. Go to my brush tool, paint in white along this line. Oops, I have black selected still. Paint in white. And now that just brings that line a little bit closer. So now if I deselect this, okay, so I went overboard with my brush, so I'll just go to a small brush, press X to select black instead of white. You know what? I'll just undo that and do it again. So with white, with a smaller brush, because I went way overboard here and discolored everything, go back and just paint along that line. Control D. Great. Much better. Before it was cutting a little bit too far into the skin here. So now it looks much more realistic. Now we need to go to this bottom layer and make a selection or make a path along this line of the shirt because that's the line that we're going to follow to cut it out. So again, select the layer mask for the Andrew legs layer. Go to my pen tool. We'll start from the previous selection, just using those same tricks that we learned before. Follow this line along this path. Remember, as I'm doing this, I want to stay within, like inside of this line, a few pixels, so that we're not seeing any weird borders. And I'm just simply going through here and making a simple path along this crease in the fabric. Go out to here. Then I'll just, what I'll do is I'll just make a really wide selection out of this because we want to cut all of this out as well. So I'll just go out here, close my selection, make sure it looks good there. And now I'll make a selection out of that path. And inside that path, I will paint black. Okay, bring my brush size up quite a bit. Paint this out. Remember, when you make a selection in any area in Photoshop and then make adjustments, you can only make adjustments within your current selection. So one thing I did here, you can see that this, I remember when we blurred the layer mask, and then here it gets a lot more sharp. So I'm gonna undo what I just did. And now when we go to make selection, I'm going to feather it much more by 2 pixels. Then let's paint that back in. Command D. Now if we zoom in, it's much more feathered here. So perfect. Now let's turn on the Andrew arms layer to see how that looks. Much better. Now the thing here is that the Andrew arms layer is above the Andrew legs layer, right? But the Andrew legs layer comes over top this piece of the fabric. So one thing we can do is duplicate the Andrew arms layer, or actually duplicate the Andrew legs layer by clicking Control J, bring it above Andrew arms, and then we'll just have to adjust the layer mask. So let's go in here and delete everything besides just this close-up here. And we can do that by making a selection, selecting the inverse, backspace. So now if we turn off everything else, you can see that this layer is just that little circle selection that we had made. So we'll turn on everything else, and all we'll do is with this little layer at the top, adjust this now. So if I turn that off, you can see what we did here. So let's go in and brush out on this layer mask where we don't want it visible. So with my black brush, go here. Remember, I have a very low hardness on this brush. So let's even out that area there. And then we just want to straight up get rid of this up here. And now what we can do is expand the layer mask on the Andrew arms layer mask by going in here and with a white brush, just clicking here to expand the selection, or expand the layer mask, I guess, to make this visible. Then we turn on that little piece that we had before, and now it goes over top this bottom layer, and it looks great. So here's with it on and off, you can see that just that little selection, that little circle of this layer is going over that now. So that's one way that when you have layers in the wrong order and you just need a certain element to be in a different area, just make just duplicate the layer and then cut it down to just the area that you need and bring that layer above like we just did. Okay, now when we zoom in here, we can see that this layer mask is way too sharp, right, compared to this one. So let's go in here, and with the layer mask selected with our blur tool, actually let's use the smudge tool on this. With the smudge tool, bring it to a low strength, and just bring the layer mask in a little bit. Smudge tool will also kind of act as a blur, but it won't blur both sides of the smudge, if that makes sense. So it won't expand the mask outward, but we can control to smudge it inward so it doesn't like ruin the layer mask that we had created, right? And now you can see where it was really sharp before, it's kind of adding a little bit of a feather here, which is very nice. Let's see. Okay, and I'll just go around here real quick. Now, as I go through, I probably want to make it a little bit like more blurred as I get closer to this other area that we were just working on. Because up here, it's more sharp. Down here, it meets the area of the cloth that's supposed to look like it's less sharp. So get down here, get more and more blurred. And there we go, that looks much better. Yeah, up here does not look so good. We will have to play with this in a second. Okay, but look at that. Now it looks like it's just one image, right? His arm is here. We found areas where we could easily cut out the cloth where there were folds in it to make it look more realistic. This up here is a little bit a stretch, right? There's no seam here. There probably would be, but when you look at it as a whole, I have no problem with that. I'm just accepting that as that's how it should look. So let's go to the neck. What we need to do here is match the head to the body. So we have this area up here where the hair is kind of coming over the hood here, and then the skin tones in here need to be adjusted. Also here we're getting a little bit of the neck from the overlaying layer. So we'll need to play with that as well. So with this, remember we added a layer mask to the entire head layer before in the last video. So let's just, with that same layer mask, go and fade this out a little bit more. So let's go to our brush tool, the black brush at 0% hardness. Come in here, just try to fade that a little bit better. Okay, already that's much better. And then here I kind of went overboard, so I'll come back and fix that. We'll see what we want to do with the hair there in a second. So for now, we'll just leave it kind of like that. Okay, that looks great. Here, we're getting a weird seam because why is that actually? I'll just paint that out and get rid of that. Great. And now the only thing that we have to worry about is the discoloration. There's a lot more red in this area than in this area. So let's go ahead and add a layer mask or adjustment layer to this part of the image. So we'll go to curves. No, let's go to hue saturation. I'll drag this out here so we can see it a little bit better. So we want the neck to match the lower part of the neck here. So applying this layer mask to the head group below it, let's go to reds. Let's go to saturation, bring the saturation of the reds up a little bit, and then the tint, the hue value over a little bit. Good, and then let's go to the master and see if adjusting the hue here can help at all. Good, that matches much better. And if we go to lightness and bring it down a little bit, I think that'll help too. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, and I think I saturated that reds a little too much, so I'll bring that down. Okay, and now let's go ahead and also add a curves adjustment. Here, I'll apply it to the head group. Just need it to match a little bit better. Okay, so just the tiniest little adjustment makes it look much better. And now I've affected the tone of the entire head here, and I don't want to do that. I just want to affect this area and kind of add a bit of a transition. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the layer masks on the adjustment layers that I just created, paint it out, so Shift I, or Control I, there we go, to add it all black, and then with a white brush, low hardness, just gradually allow that to fade back in here. Good, and then I'll do the same thing with the curves layer. Control I to invert the layer mask so that nothing's showing. And then here, just allow a little fade. So I turn those off and you can see what it was before. Now you can see what it looks like now. So I just darkened it a little bit and matched the hue values a little bit better. Great, and now that neck is on the body. Down here, it's kind of fading out a little bit too dramatically, where we should see a little bit indent below his Adam's apple right here. So let's go to the head layer mask. Let's see what's going on. Okay, I think I need to show more of this. Yeah, so I thought this was a weird Photoshop thing, but actually that's just how it was in real life. So maybe I don't need to adjust anything here. Yeah, I'm good with this. It's a little dark throughout here, so maybe with the curves adjustment with a brush at a low opacity, I'll just come back in here, lighten it up the tiniest bit. Good, and now with this layer, I'll do the same thing. Okay, great. Down here maybe needs a little bit better of a transition. Nope. Again, that's just the way it was, so I forget that the line is up here. That's what you get when you do a great job at cutting out your selections and blending them together. So, yay for us. Okay, now let's take a look here if anything else needs work being blended. So we have the hair here that we need to work on. Let's take a look at that. So the hair from the underlying layer, which is, what are we looking at? Andrew Arms? Yeah. Let's turn off the Andrew Arms layer mask and take a look at what the hair looks like here. I like this a lot, so let's try to blend all of this hair into the original, or into the overall composite by painting back in some of that. So let's go to a brush, bring my opacity back up, and just like that, allow it to come back in. Now I'll come back through and paint it out where I probably went too far. You want this to be really feathered, so take that into account. Now let's turn the head back on and let's erase some of this here to allow it to blend a little better. So with a brush at a lower opacity, let's just see if we can get some of this other hair to show in through a little bit better. So with black, we want to paint on here. We'll go a little overboard for now until we get what we want. Okay. That's actually blending really nicely. So then let's go to black or white. We'll go to full opacity here because we want to make sure nothing's transparent in this area. This is another time where having that color beneath can really help us. When you're working with skin tones, there's a lot of green in skin tones and pink actually, but I don't know, that's just why it's useful to have both of these options down here. Okay, and then down here we need to fill in this hair again. Like that. Okay. Kind of want to bring it up a little bit more here. Oh, that's his ear. Okay. Maybe not. Maybe I want to bring it in a little bit, actually. Yeah, we'll just allow it to blend with the other hair here. Cool, and now this is causing some problems. Maybe if we just allow some more hair to be shown right there, it'll look better. Great, and let's paint back in on that layer mask beneath so we can see down here. Okay, it's still looking a little fake to me. So we'll just get more specific. What I'll do is I'll paint with a lower brush size at a low opacity to bring in just these little areas of strands of hair that'll make it look more realistic. Because you don't want it to look like the line of the paintbrush, you know? Okay, that looks great. And then I need to show this beneath so it doesn't look pink or transparent. Great, and then right here, yeah, let's paint that out a little. Nope. It's allowed to show more of that. Maybe that's what we need. Okay, so again, yeah, I'm just gonna go with a lower opacity of brush. Because behind the ear there is a shadow, so it should be darker. I think because the hair is darker there already, it adds to the believability. Okay. Okay, great. Now, let's make sure that everything looks good here. Okay, remember down here his hair was having some problems. Let's just paint this out. So let's find what layer this is on. Okay, the Andrew Arms layer. Let's just paint out this hair. Because it's given us some grief. Good. Much better. And then let's help this hair in this spot to blend a little better. So let's find that layer. Probably in here. Okay, this layer right here. So we need to blur this a little better, as we were doing before. And then this, maybe if we just paint this out. Yeah. Okay, so I did a little too much, but let's go through more specifically. Oops. Paint that out. And then we don't have to worry about it, because that did not look good. Great. Okay, great. The hair here, the shape of it kind of looks a little weird, but all of our selections are blended together, so it looks good. So in the next video, we will make some final tweaks to this element of our composite.